Okay. Um, yeah, one of my employees mentioned smacking, and I don't like sunflower seeds aren't a thing to me that you buy online and get in the mail. But he raved about the flavor, said they were good. And for the most part, he's right. The cracked pepper are pretty good. But I feel like who doesn't like sunflower seeds?
Right.
I mean, make a
Did
good
you just
gift.
keep a spittoon around you or something, or a cup?
So this is kind of the gross part. Yes, I have a trash can under my desk, and so like there's not a good way to eat sunflower seeds without being just
Right.
grotesque. Um, sorry, real quick. Hey, everybody joining the webinar. We're just letting everybody get online. We're gonna start here in just a second with our panelists, our city managers, and for the sunflower for the time being, we're talking about sunflower seeds because that's one of my favorite topics of all time. Everybody hop on and we'll get this thing kicked off in just a minute. Um, so yeah, I need a different solution for what to do with the shells. Because I haven't figured that out yet. But it's a small price to pay for me. For people sitting in my office, it's probably wildly uncomfortable. Uh, but uh, I'm trying to explore the different flavors. I will say with that smacking brand, they have a cinnamon churro, which is fascinating. One of my team members really liked it. I thought it was like eating pennies. So I don't know. I guess the flavors are you have to be very particular. Let's see. We still got people joining. Welcome everybody. We'll start this webinar in just a minute. In the meantime, leave a comment if you have a favorite sunflower seed that you'd like for us to try. Uh, my next adventure is going to be taco flavored sunflower seeds because that's a seasoning that just works on everything. You know what I
Right.
mean? Um, so I don't know.
Yeah, I used to do.
Smacking.
Well,
Uh,
I used to do seeds at work, and then I think someone reported me to HR thinking I was doing dip, like during the middle of the day. And I was like, yeah, no, no.
I must admit,
how?
Josh, I just assumed you were dipping.
Excuse me, allergies. Yeah, no. I guess I could see how you'd get there, but to take it to HR, man, that's you must have like upset somebody.
Well, I thought I had a cup with me. I thought it looked normal, but no.
Yeah, I um I can see how that would go down, and I mean even I that's a road trip food for me too. Like I love having sunflower seeds, but inevitably, you have to have some sort of a trash receptacle. It's really not a great, now that I'm thinking about it, like saying it out loud, it's not a great snack. You know what I mean? It's not, doesn't have the best hygiene possible. I don't know. Okay, I think we're about settled now, so we will migrate to the reason that we're here today, which is not sunflower, surprisingly enough. So welcome everybody to our November Tamia webinar. I'm Josh Lee. I'm your host for the webinar today. We're here to talk about our perspectives from our city managers, from a couple of well-respected city managers around the state that help us give us a different idea from our normal strategic communications and how we think about things. I am going to transition over to Dustin Dangli to introduce all of our speakers and run this fantastic webinar. I do want to tell everybody two things. One, we're recording the webinar so you can watch it after the fact. And we do have a new web page where these will be hosted. It's on our listens.texastamio.org. I will post a link to that in the comments. And the reason that I mentioned that specifically is one, it's a new location we're very excited about, but There are two new features on that page that allow you to provide feedback on how we're doing, as well as any topic ideas for future webinars. So we always want to get your input. We want to hear what you all want to learn about and make sure that we're tailoring information to be helpful for you. The last thing that I'll mention is that we will take questions at the end of this. So if you can use the QA feature on the bottom of your selection panel, I will monitor those as well as the comments just in case, but feel free to comment as we go along. And with that, Dustin, I'll kick it over to you.
Josh, thank you so much, everyone. I think we got 43 people in here right now, so it's a really great crowd. I think y'all are here for the same reasons I am, which is to hear from these city managers, just how do they define the relationship between communications and the city manager's office. And so feel free to use the Q&A feature. We'll be checking that during the discussion so we can ask our panelists some of the specific questions y'all have, in addition to the ones we've prepared. So if you guys are ready for the spice, let me go ahead and introduce our wonderful panelists today. We'll start with ladies first. So Aretha Adams is with us. She currently serves as the city manager of Murphy, Texas, a role she has had since February of 2024. She brings nearly 2 decades of municipal management experience, having also served as city manager in Heath, Texas, and Sykesville, Maryland. Why did I say it like that? A firm believer in public service and servant leadership, Aretha prioritizes transparency and community engagement as a cornerstones of a city's success. Recognizing the vital role of effective communication, she established a public affairs position soon after arriving in Murphy to align communication strategies with the city's vision. Aretha earned a bachelor's degree in political science from Florida A&M University and a master's in public administration from American University in Washington, D.C. She's an active member of ICMA, TCMA, NFBA, NFBPA, and She Leads Gov, where she serves as a board member. Beyond her professional roles, she's deeply involved in the Junior League, contributing to communities outside her work. Aretha resides in McKinney, Texas, with her husband and their 4 youngest children, while their eldest is an adult. Though her life is full, she embraces the balance between her career, family, and community service, and she wouldn't trade it for the world. Aretha, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
Great. Joe Price was appointed to the city manager of Canyon in October. Prior to his appointment, he was the assistant city manager and director of planning and development for the city of Borger from August 2017 to October 2019. Joe began his career at the Panhandle Regional Planning Commission, their Council of Governments, in 2012 as a program coordinator. Joe earned a bachelor's and master's degree in political science from West Texas A&M University. He holds a certified floodplain manager credential and is a certified public manager. He is an active member in the Amarillo Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, where he's a voting member, and the Texas CDBG Unified Scoring Committee, which is a state board where he's also a voting member. He's also active in the TCMA, Panhandle City Managers Association, and Texas Floodplain Management Association. Joe, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks, Dustin.
All right, Victor, this is Victor Brownlees. I'm gonna try not to sound too brummy while I read this. He's the assistant manager for the city of Pearland, Texas. An Ulsterman by birth, he served as chief executive officer, the city manager, for several local municipal governments in the UK prior to relocating in the US in 2017. He's an accountant by profession and a member of the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, or CIPFA, the leading body for practitioners specializing in public sector financial management. In 2016, Victor was elected a fellow of CIPFA in recognition of his contribution at senior level to fiscal stewardship in the UK public sector. Victor is an alumnus of Harvard's Kennedy School of Government Senior Executive Program for state and local government and a credentialed manager with the ICMA. Victor is married to Jenna, a native of Lubbock, Texas, and a retired colonel who served for 30 years in the U.S. Army Nurse Corps. Their son Alexander is a firefighter who lives in Conroe with his wife Elizabeth and baby Callum. Victor's true passion outside of work and family is drumming. He has played in marching bands, orchestras, jazz bands, and rock bands, as well as being a 5th-generation traditional Ulster Scots Lambeg drummer. Victor, thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it.
So as people start filing their questions into the Q&A, I really kind of want to set the table for everyone. Every city does this differently. Every city or city manager's office has a different relationship with their communications team or department. So if y'all want, tell us a little bit, how is your system set up? How often are you interacting with your communications team?
I can jump in. So, as you kind of mentioned in my bio, upon coming to Murphy, we didn't have a dedicated communications office or even a position that was dedicated to communications. So, that was one of the first things that I did because it's just important to me that we have that role in house. I work really closely with Bailey Ragsdale. She's my communications team of one. She's small but mighty, and we work closely together. But without me, I make it a point not to micromanage or smother her. I really want her creativity to flourish. So I see my role as really ensuring that she's integrated into the broader strategic goals of the city, making sure that she has access. So although it's not a director level position, she comes to all of our weekly director meetings so that she can get firsthand knowledge about what's happening across the organization, right? I don't want her to have to be dependent on secondhand information from me or from other directors. I want her to hear it firsthand and really be a part of the team, so that she can tell our story in the most accurate way possible. The really the other part of that is just making sure that she understands what our vision and our mission is, what those kind of more technical things are outside of just being creative, so that she can combine it and use her creativity to make it something that's digestible for the public.
I was also in a very unique and similar situation. I created our first position here in Canyon. Our community is growing. It's one of the few towns in our region that's growing. We're also very rural, and so I'd say we've got, out of our 26 counties, 50 incorporated cities, there's probably 4 cities maybe that has a communications person, if that. I don't even want to ask on the county side, but kind of goes exactly in what was just said. We just had to have that level of communication. You know, most rural communities, our newspapers are drying up. A lot of the new generations don't read newspapers. You know, we're putting notices in there for legal purposes because we have to. But the way my team leader, which is Megan Nelson, and she reports to my city secretary, who also is the director of administrative services. So she is a director level city secretary. Several directors do report to her. And Megan, my director of communications and community engagement, reports to her. She plays a very active role in anything and everything. She hears all the dirty secrets in City Hall, from economic development to crisis. She knows kind of it's better to let her know what's going on and not have to report it all. So she's at least aware of ongoing challenges and issues. Right now, we got a lot of growth. I've got a lot of, we're in fire season. We've got a lot of fires. You know, the Texas Panhandle just had the largest fire in the history of Texas recently. And that was about 60 minutes from here. We send trucks there. We have a lot of crises we have to do. We have tornadoes. And so that can spark on a Friday afternoon and your day is just wrecked. We have that dichotomy where we separate, where we have her and my police captain. They all coordinate on crisis communication and how to effectively communicate in what way and manner. So I like having that specific piece on crisis communications. But in the day-to-day stuff, I find it more valuable that even if she's not communicating certain things out, she's very aware of the ongoing issues, the main things that are being focused on, even though she's not releasing that information, she's aware if something comes in. Surprisingly enough, the public doesn't know, I'm directly a city manager on our Facebook account. A lot of technical questions come in via Messenger. I answer a bunch of those because Megan, my director, doesn't have those technical knowledge on something. A lot of times I'm directly responding to those Facebook messages, which people don't know. And it provides a lot of value. One unique thing I do say that I pride myself in, every new utility customer gets a text from me welcoming them to town. I at least have a small enough community. I do try to text every new individual that sets up utility with us. Sometimes I lag. Sometimes it's people moving from one side of the town to the other. But I do try to text everybody, just welcome them to our community, and we're glad to have them here. And if they have any questions, I'm here free and text. And some people do, and some people are grateful, and it's great to hear those stories. So,
Joe, is that your office number that you're texting from, or is there like an automated line?
no, I text them from my city cell phone. So I have
Wow.
a city issued cell phone. So I probably have 30 to 50 every 2 weeks. So I'm probably sending out 60 plus. It's all stationary most of the time. And I've had, probably 10%, and I go back and forth, and sometimes people are like, hey, we've got like all these bulk items in the alley. I'm like, okay, I'll have the trash truck come by.
Wow.
Well,
Victor,
you're a
can you
hard
tell
act.
us a little bit about how
Yeah, I
y'all
was
have the
going to say,
setup over there?
Joe's a hard act to follow. I must admit, I'm not just quite as engaged as that. Um, and I have to say, in Pearland, we're incredibly fortunate because we have Josh Lee as our director of communications, and Josh and his team are very much an integral part of the city manager's office. We meet on a regular and a frequent basis. We don't have any secrets. Josh knows everything that's happening. So I have a very close working relationship with Josh and all the team members in communications. And as I say, they are fundamentally at the heart of what we do on a daily basis. They know about the decisions as they're being made. They're involved. So really, really key players in the city manager's office.
Wonderful. So I know two of you guys have just really set up the communications department, but our industry is still so new. Our departments are still so new. When you look at other city departments that have established metrics like gallons of water sold or permits reviewed, communications really doesn't have that yet. So how do you define successful communications?
So for me, it's super important. I see communications being successful by three really kind of important pillars. So you have trust, transparency, and engagement. When I realized that we needed to set something up, it was because of those three things. I knew we needed to build trust. We needed to make sure we were transparent and giving the community information before they had to come ask for it. And I wanted it to be engaging. We're what you would probably call a bedroom community, and we're partially a pass-through community as well. We're surrounded by other cities, and we're super small, 22,000 people, not even a full 5 square miles. So the engagement part, getting these folks to come home from work and want to engage with the city was important to me, because otherwise we really don't know if what we're doing is something they like or don't like if we're not hearing from them. So those are kind of the pillars for me that have to be hit for me to say, hey, this is being successful. The other piece of that is communication has to be proactive, but it also, we all know, you all know, it's also reactive as well. So proactive from the standpoint of we need to be the ones telling our story before the narrative is created for us, right? And then reactive in that, even no matter how well we tell a story, misinformation gets out there. So sometimes we have to be reactive in saying, hey, let's set the record straight. This is truly what's happening. So if we're kind of hitting and firing on all those cylinders, that's what I see as successful. And although we're new, I think, our small team has been pretty good at following through on those things.
To add to that, I mean that was spot on. I can't add a whole lot to that other than communication does have to have some flexibility. And so obviously we've got our regular things we all have to continue to move forward. Our things that take a month, things that take a year, things that take several years. From our strategic communications plan, if you haven't got one, that's a great way to do that, to continue to follow that mark. But also in the flexibility I mentioned earlier, I might have a massive issue that happens, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And, I have to have my director of communications actively involved in that, warning our citizens or putting that out there and getting that message out there. We just got to stay flexible and oriented with what's going on and and relaying the best information that we can in the best methodology we can.
So for me, fundamentally, we're in the trust business. Josh always reminds me, trust is earned often in the smallest moments. So it's about getting our message out, but in a way that is credible and in a way that helps to earn the trust of not just the end users, the citizens themselves, but our elected officials. So how I measure it is when they believe us, when we tell them our story and they believe that story and then repeat that to others. That for me is the measure that that is working.
Great. Thank you. We have a question in from Andrea. She's asking, what campaigns or what information specifically do you see an increasing engagement rate? So what's the information that your community has been really involved or interested in from your city?
So one of the cool things that Bailey implemented soon after she took the role was council updates. So that it was something that I noticed. You know, we're having these council meetings, but really it's only the people who are kind of showing up. We weren't measuring the metrics on who was tuning in and watching online after the fact or live. And so I went to her and I said, hey, I really want to make sure we're pushing this message out, that people are understanding and knowing what we're talking about at these meetings, because our attendance is so low. So we had recently obtained a dog for the fire station through a Patriot Paws program. So Bailey, in all her creativity, decided, hey, we're going to do these. We're going to do some bite size. We try to keep them to a minute, minute and a half. Council updates the day after every council meeting. But instead of, me coming on or the mayor coming on and giving a stuffy update, we use our fire dog. Her name is Applejack, and Bailey does it in her little, fake dog voice. And she has clips of any kind of item that council may have discussed or considered. She'll have some B-roll for that. And then the dog is kind of walking around and playing and stuff. But it's really engaging for the community. They have responded so well to it. What do they say? Babies and animals. That gets you every time on social media, right? And so it draws them in, but we're giving them valuable information at the same time. And they seem to have really loved that. And so while communication is important, and like I said, I try to hit on that trust, transparency, and engagement, we at Murphy, we like to do it in fun ways. This business is serious, right? Everything we do every day is serious, but we want to have fun while doing it. And I think our residents are really responding to that attitude that we have.
We took a stab this year trying to help create our own State of the City event, trying to get to that and just trying to hear back. We found some great success on surveys working with we have West Texas A&M University, where I graduated, is in Canyon. And so we worked some with the students. Our director of communications, Megan, has tried to work on some of that to try to continue to get that level of engagement and what people want. Very much just like Aretha, we're very much a bread room community. People driving back and forth to Amarillo, which is less than 10 miles from here, and just trying to get them engaged and seeing what they want to. Most of the time, they want to really just see what's going on from day to day, but they don't want you to overwhelm you with that information. So we do have a 200,000 plus town, and it can get some volatility on that. Canyon's pretty stable at most of the time. And, we took a real stab at that at the State of the City. We had been working for 2 years trying to get that stabilized. This year we did a standalone. Before we had been going to Lions Club. We have a huge Lions Club chapter in Canyon, maybe one of the biggest in the state. They're like 200 strong. We go to them, it helps practice. They're a little more laid back, so they're very direct a lot of times on their questions, which, I like it. I just straightforward. We want to hear. We go to Rotary and some of those. So we practiced and worked our way up. And I ripped the Band-Aid off this year to say, hey, Megan, let's make this happen. Let's get this and get it done. And I think that's been one really good thing. We learned some lessons on we need to continue to get more email invites out on that. Our school district is super good at doing those types of events and, putting out there what the public really wants to hear. We're gearing up for a bond election here. And so we had a lot of conversations about that bond election and the public safety improvements that we're trying to improve upon and why we need these things. And so I think we found a lot of good value in that. We find a lot more value that people want to be hands-on, but it's a struggle after 5 o'clock when they go home, just like everybody else.
So one of our particular campaigns recently has been about the revitalization of the Old Town site in Pearland. So for those of you who don't know, Pearland's got about 130,000 people now, explosive growth over the last 10 years, and lots of new build and lots of focus on the area around 288 and what have you. And more recently, we've started to think about, hey, what about our roots? What about where it all started? And the Old Town site is, it's got historic significance to people locally, and we felt the need to celebrate that and to look at what we can do to revitalize that area. And we've tried over the years different ways to engage people. So we conducted a campaign recently, and we had over 5,000 people all responded. A lot of interest. But the big thing for me is now we've revved everybody up, and Josh and his team has been great at getting all the engagement. We've got to deliver something, so it kind of puts us a little bit on the spot there. But appreciate all the work that the communications folks have done to get that level of engagement.
Great. So it really sounds like a lot of the things that people are interested in are the things we always knew. It's the fun stuff, that getting the pets, the babies in there. It's the stuff that directly impacts them. It's trying to create new events to get interest. I am curious. Joe, you mentioned newspapers, especially even there in the small towns, are drying up. So more people are going to social media to get their information. How much do what level of influence do social media comments have on your decision making? But more importantly, what level of social media feedback does that play on your city council's decision making?
I'll be, I'm pretty brutal on this, so I'm sorry, Megan, but she has to hold me back sometimes because I have a very big distaste for deceitfulness and misinformation. Probably too far. I don't have any patience for it. And so there will be some times where I personally comment. I try to get the commission not to. The commission's very good about not. They'll probably half of my elected body will read things and just, it keeps a barometer, as I would like to say. Just what are people talking about? I'd say 90% of people are talking about dogs and cats getting out, and hey, is this your dog? Is this your cat? Which, that's just what it's always going to be. But, I just, if someone is, talking about a topic that we're directly involved in and I see it, if someone is saying things that are not true and not factual, I try to quickly jump in and say, listen, that's not the truth. This is the facts. These are exactly what's happening. Even we had our flagpole. We have a massive flagpole in town, and everybody loves it. It's huge. It blows in the wind, and it's just massive. And you wouldn't believe how many times we had comments about that. The boring company that was laying a lot of fiber cut out the light. You cannot fly a flag at night unless it's properly lit. And so we had no power, so we had to take the flag down until our electric company ran power back out to it and fixed it. I wouldn't believe you'd think that there'd be all these comments out there about it. And so people would always be chiming in on this, like, no, that's not true. We had a fiber company that ran into this, and it just, we got to, in order to keep it up 24/7, we have to have it lit. That's the government code. That's the actual way to do it. But I will chime in on occasion. We had a railroad crossing shut down for quite a long time. We had a train run into a semi, and there was a lot of people just trying to say this, and that. And I chimed in on multiple times. I'm like, no, that's not true. BNSF, things take a long time, and so that's the approach I take on some of that. I don't know if I take a lot of it in there at such a grain of salt at sometimes, because we're in the thick of it. The commission's in the thick of it. They're the ones that have been elected to be the informed decision makers, and not everybody has that information. And we're more than happy 99% of the time to share them the information and just bring them in if they're interested. In my thinking, I'm like, I'm just glad to see they're engaged one way or the other. Sometimes it's negative, but at least they're being engaged. I'll take that over apathy.
So we have a charter review coming up here in Pearland, and I believe one of the proposals that will be coming forward is to scrap the elected body altogether and replace it with a Facebook group. That's that is a running joke that we have internally. We have a very engaged group of people on Facebook who keep our mayor and elected officials on their toes. I mean, my take on it is perhaps we give it too much credence at times, but at the end of the day, social media exists. And again, Josh always reminds us we might not like some of the stuff that people say, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever, but it's out there, and we've got to be able to respond and respond positively and get our message and our story out and make that a credible one. So I think we're kind of stuck with it. I remember my grandfather ranting and raving about the evils of the telephone and color television, and we are where we are today. And I think we've got to embrace it, use it in the best way we can, and understand sometimes 2 or 3 people in an echo chamber aren't truly the representatives of the wider citizenry.
Yeah, I agree with both Victor and Joe. Social media it's the gift and the curse of the time that we live in. And I think it's valuable in that, you can begin to gauge some sentiment. You can begin to identify some emerging trends if you weed through, some of the noise. But it's just one input amongst many, right? So that you can't get so caught up in it. Like, God bless you, Joe. I will never respond to anything on social media. I don't care if they say my name. I don't care what, I'm never responding. So, but I want to make sure that my communications team is keeping an eye on it again, so that we can gauge, those emerging trends and kind of what the sentiments of the community are. But I am so blessed to have a council, and I'm the same way. We make our decisions. They got to be rooted in facts and broader trends rather than just the loudest voices, that we're hearing, like Victor said, from the echo chamber, because it quickly becomes that on social media. And so we use it to a point, but we know when to kind of, remove the noise and make sure that the decisions that we're making, that the recommendations that I'm bringing to council are rooted in what we know to be true. A lot of the council kind of being okay with that is at the outset, we really set the expectations with them. I mean, when I asked for this position to be created, one of the things that I talked to them about was, hey, this position will be a resource and a safeguard for the city's reputation. Like I said before, we're going to be both proactive and reactive, but hopefully all of our proactive communication will really set the stage. And, we have to sometimes remind council of that, because I do have a mayor who's in a male only group for the citizens of the community. And he will get in there and he'll comment. But luckily, he's the type of mayor, again, that comes from a place of facts and not necessarily emotion. And he doesn't let things really knock him down too much. So I'm so sorry, my phone's ringing. So it's just been helpful. But again, social media, it's one of those necessary evils that we have to live with. We can use it to our benefit, or we can get swallowed up by it.
Well said. Let's step away from the keyboard warriors a little bit. Let me remind people too, if you have a question, feel free to use the Q&A section of the Zoom to ask your question. We'll get to it. I am, ideally as a communications department, we're reaching every resident of the city equally. But is there a certain demographic in your community that you think has a larger role or has a larger influence that we need to for sure be targeting?
Absolutely. Of course, all of our citizens are important, but for me, it's homeowners and it's parents. I think those are the most important ones. I think I mentioned before that we're partially a pass-through community as well. So we're always going to hear from folks who don't live here, who are complaining maybe about the traffic on our main corridor. But the parents who live here, who send their kids to school here, who use our parks, the homeowners who have invested, the bulk of their financial wealth in our community, those are the folks those voices are the voices that I'm going to value the most. Again, I value everybody, but if we're being candid here, those are the ones that we're trying to target. Those are the ones that we're trying to engage. Those are the ones that we're trying to make sure that they continue to be happy with the choice they made to live here.
the ones we hear the most from are the loudest, but they're always usually the ones in the minority too. And one things we have to remind our elected officials on, hey, that's only 3 people. While they've quoted this comment on Facebook 88 times, it's only 3 people. So it doesn't, just because they're upset on something, it doesn't mean the majority of the community is upset on it. So, but I can't add any more than what Aretha said. She's pretty spot on that. I'm a veteran community just like she is, and that's a big part of it. And I do have a university here, and I do have a award-winning school district, and so we are very much town and gown. All of us work really well together to promote each other, and a lot of the we're building about 100 houses a year right now for our rural town, which is really nice. And most of those people are moving here because of our school district, and we're how blessed we are to have that, to be able to tout that. And so that's exactly how we are, and those are our primary ones. And we try to build our businesses up. We have a wonderful downtown square, probably one of the best there is, and we really build that up a lot. I mean, it won't be. We'll probably have a Main Street event. There'll be 5,000 people there, and that's a blessing. And those visitors, those are going to be those parents and children, and they're the ones we're trying to get that message to as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Aretha and Joe. One of the issues we have is getting consistent engagement across all the various demographics and the various parts of Pearland. We kind of have a dichotomy between the older, more established parts of the city, where actually there's a reasonable degree of engagement and people are kind of plugged into what's going on. And then people on the newer, the western side, to be honest with you, some of them don't even know they live in Pearland. They think they live in Houston. Now, is there anything wrong with that? I don't know. I just sometimes think that we miss something and not really harnessing their energies and capturing their voice. So again, that's something we have to work at, that everyone's access to us is not the same, and it's incumbent on us to do something about leveling that playing field for everybody, so everybody's voice can be heard, and that's something to work at every day.
Fantastic stuff. I just want to say thank you again for you guys for being here with us. This is some valuable insight. I'm trying to take notes as I'm listening to the conversation as well. Okay, so I just checked the participants, and none of your communications people are in this Zoom, so we can be completely honest. What do you wish your comms people did more of? What do you want them to know as they're making their plans?
First of all, I know my communications person is in this Zoom. So you're not going to trick me, okay? But because I respect her and I value her and communicate with her anyway, I will go ahead and tell you what my wish list is. So I think I've said this before, the trust, the transparency, the engagement, are the pillars. Those are the pillars of a good, successful communication strategy to me. And in doing that, storytelling is the way we get there in my mind. And so more of that, which she's doing a great job at that, but more of that, more of the storytelling, more of a common thread being weaved amongst all of the various stories we're telling about different components of either the organization for internal communication or for the community for our external communication. Focusing on highlighting our city's unique strengths, it's really difficult sometimes to see yourself as unique when you're surrounded by all of these bigger cities and you're kind of just, the small fish in the bigger pond around you. So really us kind of pulling out what is truly unique to Murphy without being kind of hokey about it. Like, be real, like what's unique to us, and play that up a little bit. I also want to make sure that communications never loses sight of the need for cross-departmental collaboration, making sure that they know that they're in service to not just the community, but to their internal partners as well, making sure that their internal partners' stories are getting told in a valuable way. So but again, Bailey, you're doing a fantastic job. Just had to answer the question.
Yeah. It's hard to address that, being that we started from nothing, and so I think we're just grateful. Our team, Megan here has brought so much stuff. One of the things we wanted to do is kind of show off that uniqueness that Aretha mentioned, and we've been able to do some videos with myself, our mayor, our chamber. We've been able to show off a little bit of that. We do have the largest Canyon in the state, and the second one in the United States here in our backyard. It is now the most visited state park in the state of Texas. Trying to tell some of those unique stories like Aretha just mentioned, and just kind of doing that and going from there, and be ever evolving of, hey, how can we reach the most people? We got to continue to keep our ear to the ground on how we can continue that and continue to gauge what their topic interest is and see where they're at. And so maybe it's this year, and next year that changes. Right now the topic is talking about public safety. Our city has grown significantly. Our tax value has doubled in less than 10 years, which we find to be significant for a rural community like ourselves. But just tell the story. Hey, listen, we've grown. It's time to start moving some things forward. We got to have more police officers on patrol. It's very, very, very important to keep that topic in front of our audience here. But just continue to tell that story. But Megan, you're doing a great job. It's hard to criticize when you start from nothing. We built the foundation. Now we're putting the walls up on the house. Maybe we'll start doing some insulation and continue to build from there. It's a great place to be able to start from fresh, because you can make it what it needs to be.
You're so nice, Joe. I feel like I threw everything on Bailey. She thought she was going to start budget videos next year. And I was like, oh, no, we're doing that this year. And she knocked it out.
So I just say what Aretha said, what Joe said. Yeah, Josh, I know you're listening. I hope some of your other folks in your team are plugged in too, to what we're saying. Keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing an absolutely outstanding job. We couldn't do what we do without your help. To Aretha's point, this is about having a consistent and a credible narrative. I said at the beginning, we're in the trust business. So the reputation that I want us to build, and Josh, I know you're with me on this, I want our reputation to be one of telling the truth, because that's how we will earn trust.
Fantastic, y'all. And then y'all saw through me right away. So that's why you guys are. Oh, sorry, I'm just muted. There you go. Thanks, y'all. You guys saw through what I said. We got a question here from Mason. This is really good. I know we're from cities of different sizes, but one thing we all have is special events or events that bring all the community together. So Mason asked, what strategies or activities do you find most effective for fostering engagement within the community and surrounding areas during downtown festivals, events, y'all's major events?
That's a hard one for me to answer. I mean, one of the things that we've done, but I can't really gauge if it's been effective at this point, is that we use booths. We'll have a city booth. One of the things that I've incorporated since I've been here is that we'll have a booth for a city, and every director will kind of take a shift, a 1 or 2 hour shift, to be in that booth, to answer questions about the city, to promote the city, to engage directly with our citizens so they can see that the city is not like the Wizard of Oz. Like, there's a human component to this. It's a bunch of humans involved to make all of this work. So I think the few events that we've had with the booth, it seems to be successful. People are stopping by, we're handing out goodies, we're talking to people. Those small incremental steps to really engage, I think also go a long way, just like, big social media campaigns. Another thing that we just did that actually I think was successful because we have the numbers to prove it. We launched a community survey back in October at the start of the fiscal year. And we had the city's biggest event of the year take place during the time that was launched. And we actually had like a QR code there telling citizens, hey, in case you didn't get the email, in case you missed it, we're doing a community survey. And so we were able to link to that QR code so that when we got our results, we saw where each participant came from, if they came from an email or if they came from that QR code. And we had a good amount of people from that event that filled out the survey from being there. So just some things like that. We have room to grow in this area and to get a little more creative about how we leverage events with engagement. People really just come to our events to have a good time, but we're gonna keep trying to stop them and talk to them and engage them in different ways.
Yeah, it's very, very similar for us in Pearland to the experience Aretha has had. So we use every channel of kind of engagement that we can. We have a lot of events and some really, really big ones locally. So we never miss the opportunity to reach out and touch people. And sometimes it's about very specific things. For instance, I mentioned the Old Town Revitalization Plan. So we use the events to engage with them about specific things, but also just to have that general opportunity for people to be reminded that we're here and we're here to listen to them.
Our Main Street does a bunch of engagement events, so we love those. We don't do a lot of surveys at those. One thing we're trying to improve on, we did a really good survey teaming up with West Texas A&M, and we got, I mean, an insane amount of response. I mean, maybe even a third of our population type of response for, about 5,000. I can't remember the exact number. It was thousands. We got a lot to understand some things on that. One of the things my city manager peers may know, if you're working on GFOA standards, one of the big things they have in there is doing an annual community survey. We are trying to do that. I know we have recently signed on with Kevin with Flash Vote to do some of that work. But that kind of checks two boxes. GFOA wants an annual community survey, and also we want one to get some reflection as well. And so we're taking stabs at that coming up very, very soon to increase that engagement. And that's part of our strategic communications plan on top of it, trying to check that box. But the other thing that I do, it's a little unique. One of the things I have as my directors, I've got about 12, 14 directors. I do request that they join a local civic organization. The city will pay for that membership fee. And so I have my police chief and fire chief, a lot of them are in Lions Club that I mentioned earlier. I'm in Rotary. And so I want my directors out there to be reachable. And so those community members that are engaged in there, just saying hi, or, if someone comes up, hey, what are you looking at this new on the police station improvements, or what, is how's crime going in town? I want them to be available. I find that to be a good piece. And so that's one thing I've tried to take is, hey, the city will pay those memberships for you to be actively engaged in those organizations and be open and to communicate.
Wow, really great stuff, really good strategies. We got another technical question here from Ashley from Spur, Texas. She's curious, and for special events that y'all host, are they coming out of the city's budget, a special events budget, or how do you approach sponsorships? A lot of our communications people in smaller towns also do special events. So she's just curious how your city does it.
Let me jump at that. We just went through that. So our Main Street does a lot of the sponsorships. In order to be tax deductible, you have to have a 501c3 set up. And so we did do some sponsorships for our State of the City that we just recently did. Those went to Main Street in order for those to be tax deductible. And most of those sponsorships that we tried to do just covered our food cost. So at our State of the City, we did it over 11:30 to 1, and we were very tight on that time for everybody's time to be, because everybody's time is important. That's what our sponsorships did. And so we probably get 40 to 50,000 in our Main Street side. If you're a Main Street city, that's a pretty normal thing. And so unfortunately, if you do donate to the city, it's not a tax deduction. You have to have some type of organizational structure to do it differently. That's what we find out talking to our CPAs and attorneys.
Yeah, unfortunately, Joe, we are not a Main Street city. So to answer the question, we do it in a combination of ways, but the majority of the funding comes from the city. We use it from some sales tax, I think from our 4B corporation. And we have a pretty hefty, to be a small town, I'm really shocked at how large our events budget is. This year, it was over $900,000. Our communications team does not do the events. She used to, in a different role, do some economic development type events, specifically for our businesses. But in this particular capacity, our communications doesn't do it. It's our Parks and Recreation Department that really does it. We do have a Chamber of Commerce. Their events aren't necessarily catered to our community outside of one. It's really catered to their business clientele. So the heavy lifting is really on the city. I read your comment a little bit, and I can see, that there's a little bit of tension between the city, the council, the employees, and maybe some other outside factors that you're dealing with in Spur. I think, though, for you all to not become the city that you said, kind of like a non-existent presence, there does need to be a conversation about events, and it has to be more than, oh, this will be fun. You have to be able to tie kind of some tangible results that can be measured by having those events, and maybe start small with something that could be really hometown. In a previous city that I managed, they started years ago just a 4th of July parade. And I'll tell you, it was more people in the parade than watching the parade, but they loved that. And so it cost us next to nothing, but it started as kind of a community grassroots thing. So if you can start that way, get the buy-in, make a signature event that becomes a part of the character of your community, get local businesses involved, or even if you just have, some wealthy folks who like to, throw money around, sometimes you'll find that too, who just want to kind of, chip in, do that, start it that way, but make sure, again, you can tie it back to something where you can say, hey, there's value in doing events for us as a city outside of just the cool, fun component, but also this is how we can engage with folks, or this is how we can get more people to come here, or this is how we can get on the radar of some developments that might want to bring some economic development to our town, increasing our sales tax base. So just, kind of start thinking through it that way.
Yeah, similar for us. Most of our events are run by Parks and Rec, but we leverage funds right across all the various places we get money from. So general fund pays for a lot. For instance, the 4th of July festival, the Hometown Christmas Festival, those are very much general funded activities run by Parks and Rec. But we have a very active Convention and Visitor Bureau, Visit Pearland, which is another part of the city. Actually, it's one of the responsibilities I have. So we leverage money from the hotel occupancy tax fund, and then we have an economic development corporation, and they also are very engaged, along with a very engaged Chamber of Commerce. So we look to leverage all of those ways of generating money towards events. But Aretha is absolutely right. They need to be grounded in something that matters to local people, and also that is an attraction for people to come and enjoy being in your city. So if you get all that right, then I think you're on the right path. But fundamentally, it is about working with others and doing this in partnership.
Great.
Go
Go ahead, Joe.
Going to what Aretha said, some of the things we teamed up, like we were saying, we team up with the chamber. We have like the largest 4th of July parade in Texas, like 40 to 50,000 people. So our town blows up. Some of the things we help with the chamber on that is like, we'll pay for the porta potties, because it's on public property. We'll help with fencing. There is some things we do, and we've been doing that since the beginning of time. There is a few of those things you could probably do to get there and that to be allocated. And our 4th of July events is probably large enough that we are able to do some tourism dollars that, like Victor mentioned, to that event, because it's such a large amount. So we can help the chamber offset some of that money. So just some tips.
Great. That was some fantastic insight. Actually, I hope you got what you're looking for. All right, you guys, we're at the 7-minute warning. So I know there's a couple questions I know a lot of people are curious about is what can we do as communications officials to convince y'all and convince the city council that we need more money, we need more people, we need more equipment? What's the best way to make that clear?
So I'm going to say again, you have to tie it back to some tangible benefits and outcomes. You have to demonstrate how additional resources will improve the transparency, how to improve resident satisfaction, how it's going to increase engagement. It has to tie back to what your city manager considers a successful communication strategy. The other piece of this is data. Data always matters, right? Look at what your neighboring communities or your benchmark cities are doing, and let your city managers know, hey, this is kind of the industry best standard, and we're off the mark. those kinds of things go a long way, at least with me. If I know, that cities of our size, have a team of 3 and we have a team of 1, I'm going to try to get you on the pathway to get you where you need to be, because I want you to be successful. All of us want you to be successful. When we can increase your budgets, when we can increase your staffing, it truly comes down to the bottom line in prioritizing. Because you guys know, public safety, they walk in the room and everything stops, and we have to give it to them. And so you are storytellers. Tell the story, link it back to exactly how this is going to make your department better, how it's going to make the city better, how it's going to make the community better. And you'll gain a lot of ground in getting what you need. It's not all going to happen overnight. You guys know that. But use those storytelling skills and some data in there too, to let us know why we need to do it.
So I'm glad we're recording this. Everybody, listen to this after what Aretha just said. That's the story. Stick to it.
I'm in budget challenges right now. Even my own department, as city manager, took a budget cut last year because we're trying to convert to a full-time fire department. We don't have a full-time fire department. And so I couldn't set it any better, but I've been very proactive on trying to help our department. I think we're just thankful that we have a department. The city commission, our elected officials, have told us that they have seen value in having that department and what it helps do. And my director will also help the mayor with speeches and things of that nature and those types of events. And so she is allowed to have that direct communication with him without having to come to me every time. And so she's there to help him and do things of that nature and communicate with him if he needs assistance to certain degrees. But just thankful. Yeah, everybody took a budget cut except for public safety and the Canyon budget this year.
Great. Thank y'all so much. Want to leave y'all with one more question. What is the greatest challenge facing your community today, and how can our communications teams contribute or, address that situation?
That's a good one. So for our community, I think, we're in really great condition. The biggest issues that I think that may be facing us really is build out. We're nearing build out. And with that comes a more stagnant property tax and sales tax pipeline. So that's going to be a challenge, but that's not necessarily something that we're directly communicating. We're doing it in different ways. So I think I mentioned that we did a budget video this year to really let folks know where their tax dollars are going. So we're laying the groundwork. We're starting to tell the story of, hey, a cliff is coming, a cliff where the money, it just stops kind of coming in the way that it used to. And so we're going to need everyone, the community and internally, to kind of pitch in a little bit to continue to march towards the success that we all want to see. So that's one of the bigger ones. I think overarching from a state perspective, which probably maybe isn't our story to tell yet, not at least in Murphy, is affordability. Housing affordability, I think, is one of the biggest challenges for our state. Infrastructure and water, which not a lot of people are talking about. Those are bigger issues. I think at some point they are going to trickle down to the cities, whether they are affecting us in a large way or minimally. We're going to have to start being a part of the storytelling for that at some point in the future.
So for me, all that's absolutely true. But I said at the beginning, we're in the trust business, and the trust business is a very, very challenging business to be in right now. We have significant issues at the federal level, at the state level, and trust in government. We are the front line in terms of delivering services. We touch the lives of people every single day. And to the point that Josh always reminds me, we earn trust in the smallest moments. So for me, it's about having credibility, about people believing we tell the truth and that we care about them. So for me, it's about how we go about every day earning the trust and how we treat our people, both our customers, our elected officials, and also our own people, the people that work for us. So that for me is that's kind of the thing that fires me up. How are we earning that trust? How are we building that credibility? How are we developing a reputation for telling the truth?
I think it's bold with what Victor said is the trust aspect is in, so with the political climate of the federal and state government, local control has been diminished more now than it ever has been. Unfortunately, from a state legislative level, not just from city side, but also the school districts. We're challenged every day, and those that have been around long enough, and if you look at Winter Storm Uri, in my opinion, that was pure deregulation that caused that issue. The legislature deregulated a lot of that in the early 2000s and allowed them to get lax on things. Had they not, it probably wouldn't have happened to the severity. Unfortunately, we're losing a lot of ground on that. I don't think our populace knows that to the extent to make those local decisions. I mean, they overhauled the whole tax adoption process. I mean, that process has been challenging. You know, for my community, you know, we've told our story. Hey, we're trying to move to a 24/7 fire department. You have any idea? I mean, my max tax rate in a given year here is I can raise about $500,000. You know how many firefighters that pays? I mean, I can only get maybe one or two or three firefighters a year to try to go to 24/7. It's impossible, but you know, trying to do that in a delicate and elegant way with not throwing the state under the bus completely, but it's very difficult. It's very challenging. It's very polarizing more than anything. And you know, when I deal with some of these developers in a growing community and that mistrust in government, I'm like, you guys, I grew up here just like you did. You know, I'm from here. I grew up here. You know, I went to West Texas A&M, which is here in town. You know, I'm like, I'm not from Washington D.C. You know, I'm not from Austin. No, I mean, not to offend anybody, but I'm not. I'm from here. You know, I'm not going to let things, you know, fall off the. I'm not going to let the cheese fall off the cracker overnight. We're gonna continue to move forward in the right way. It's very hard to communicate that fact of, you know, Century has fallen off in just the way the changes. You know, school vouchers, the whole deal. That all that's just is very political at this moment in time. And it does have an effect, just like I mentioned with the Winter Storm Uri. That decision to deregulate was made in 2001, 2002, 3, and it took 20 years, and now that's what happened.
If we work together, Joe, we can throw them under the bus together. It won't be so heavy because they need to be under it.
Well, you guys, thank you with that. If you guys want to catch up, we do have this recorded. Thank you guys so much for staying with us, and give a virtual thank you and applause to our panelists. Y'all, thank you so much for your time. Josh, any parting words?
No, Dustin, thank you for putting this together, and thank you all panelists for your thoughtful insights and candid conversation. This helps us as professionals and helps our organization. We want to thank you all for taking the time, all the participants. It will be recorded, or it has been recorded. It will be posted on the page that I mentioned, listen.texastamio.org. And keep an eye out for an email for the December webinar. We're finalizing the date now, but that topic is going to be just in time for the holidays, the gift of saying no. So look forward to that. And with that, everybody have a great rest of your day and a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye.